Well, I think we can all agree that most of the banks have been obsessing more about themselves than about their customers. With PSD2, as everyone is speaking about, this is going to dramatically shift. Why? Because as the customer is not locked down to the bank they have today, they have the freedom to move themselves and their data to the service provider that gives them the most value, that solves most of their daily tasks. But I think it's more than that. Even the tech giants today, Facebook employs thousands of engineers. For what purpose? For taking your data and trying to use that to grab as much of your attention as possible in order to be able to sell you as many ads as possible.
As I mentioned, we're bringing this to China, and we have the great privilege of actually having the Vice Mayor of Hangzhou join us today, and he will be crowning our official winners. So please welcome with me Vice Mayor Yao of Hangzhou. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Can I please get Nina and Stu just here as card versus cash?
All right. And Ali, the grand announcement, please, is
the winner of the Payments Race Europe 2018, for the first time ever, is a draw between cash and card.
No, you, the mayor crown. We are not facing a world that is either just web or mobile. It is really, it's common sense to say that we have to provide a consistent commerce experience across all screens and all devices and all channels and all mediums. And we believe voice is the new medium. As we have gone from typing and touching to swiping and now to speaking, each mode of interaction has gotten progressively easier for us as humans. I mean, what could be more natural, more simple, or more personal than a conversation? And so as we see the rapid adoption of voice across many, many use cases and devices, we believe voice may well be the next frontier. Voice represents an opportunity for consumers and brands alike to transform the way that they interact, the way they engage, the way they purchase and research.
What invariably happens is that startups become either a plant or a zombie. A plant is there to add a touch of color to the grayness of the corporate world. It looks amazing in an annual report. It looks amazing from a PR perspective. It gives someone a pet project. It's usually used in an internal conversation to get things moving. It will never grow into a tree. The worst scenario of that is the zombie. Those companies that get drip-fed a little bit of investment here and a little bit of investment there and a POC and a POC there, and they will never get to repeatable revenue. Why? Because what they're doing hasn't been thought through from the bank perspective. They're not part of the future plan. You don't have that conversation because you don't talk about money. It is extremely hard when you're a startup with extremely tight margins and very little money in the bank to scoff at a paid pilot for 2 years. But the conversation that needs to be had is, how do I fit into your future? Where do you see your core competencies, Mr. Banker, in 10 years' time? And how am I a part of this? How do I know that partnering with you is good for my future?
This data, once it's out there, this information, it's out there forever. You think there's a way to take it back? Not really. Sure, there's a legal way to try to take it back. You can, but for the most part, once it's out there, it's sort of like wildfire. It just keeps going. And that's, I think, one of the things that we don't fully recognize when we're putting data out there and giving it up for use, which goes to an issue of responsibility. I think we were talking about you're looking at cyberspace as an environment, and I think you brought a very valid point from one of our talks recently because of Al Gore and the whole environmental movement.
Yeah, so the point is that what happens when things go wrong in cyberspace? You know, what happens? We've had for example, Cambridge Analytica and that simple psychometric test that allowed a lot of people to lose a lot of data and effectively then be profiled as a result of that, and even their connections were profiled and then targeted in specific ways. So who's responsible when something goes wrong in cyberspace? And once we think about cyberspace as an environment, then we can actually learn from the environmental movement. And in the environmental movement, there's a premise called the precautionary principle. And the precautionary principle dictates that it's not up to us to prove that the oil company is contaminating the ocean. It's not up to us to prove that the water utility company is contaminating water supply. The onus is on those corporations to actually prove to us that they are doing no harm. Now, can you imagine if we took the precautionary principle and transposed that to cyberspace? It would be not up to us to prove harm, but up to the utilities that profit in this space to show that they are doing no harm. And when there is a spill in cyberspace, it'll be up to them to clean it up.
I think that's an important point there.